All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the 𝗍𝗫𝗍𝗆 podcast. Today I've got a very special guest. His name is Colin Rice. Colin is really active on Facebook, making a lot of interesting posts about the pitfalls of marriage and dating as a middle-aged divorced man. So we're going to talk a lot about this today. Thank you so much for coming on, Colin.
Hey Dave, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Doing great.
Welcome.
Before we jump into it, I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor at the Self-Love Army. If you haven't checked them out, go to findselflove.com. Thank me later. All right, cool. So Colin, how about you give me a little bit of a backstory on your life and how you've gotten into the personal development and dating world so heavily in the last few years?
All right, so probably start from the end and work backwards. Been separated for just over 2 years now. So I was in a 15-year marriage, had 5 kids with her, and just living around the corner, so it's all good. It's as good as it can be. I can go and see them anytime I like, and get my time with them. So it's reasonably amicable. But it's been an interesting, eye-opening experience nonetheless. And that was just over almost 2.5 years ago now. So left that identity as a married man, as a provider, as a protector, as a leader to a degree. And now this new identity is essentially a single man. So I've been navigating those waters, and it's been interesting. It's been very challenging, but in my case, or in my perspective, or the story that I tell myself, it's been well worth it. So previous to that, and then I started a business. So when I got married, I was actually just driving fuel tankers, delivering fuel around where I live in Perth, Western Australia. Pretty good job, pretty flexible. So you're off on your own a lot, which I enjoy. I enjoy the company of people, but like being alone as well. So that suited me. It was the closest thing to being self-employed without being actually the responsibilities of being self-employed. And then I realized, okay, I'm married now. I've got all the responsibilities to go with it. Children are coming along. And I thought, okay, I need to provide and provide well. Because when I was younger, sometimes that was an issue. And a couple of things happened in my younger life where I promised to myself that I'd always make sure I had enough money for myself and anyone else that I included in my life. So that's been an ambition of mine as well, to become financially free. And I've developed a degree of that. I can be in a place where I can choose to do with my time with what I like. So I stepped out and started what was called a finance business, or mortgage broking business. I think it's known as in most parts of the world, one of those two. So went into that totally green, and just kept getting up, kept getting punched, kept getting knocked down, kept getting back up, and just persevered and made a success of that. So
what do you think of men who jump into specifically marriage relationships without having their finances figured out?
Finances are really important, and I'm at a point now where I'm weighing up what would I do if I did it again, and what would I tell my younger self.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. It's interesting because you've got these biological drives that can be very, very strong, and then you've got social programming that kind of pushes you along the pathway to follow those biological drives, but those biological drives might not necessarily be best for you as an individual. So what I'd say to my younger self is, but it's a catch-22, because we didn't have the education back then that we have now at our fingertips through our phones. We can learn about any subject. We can learn, if you want to learn, how do I understand women better, or how do I become financially free? Obviously you've got to sort through the stuff that's out there, but it's all at our fingertips now. But back when I was growing up, and back when I was in my 20s and the 90s, it was we were pretty much under the influence of whatever society we grew up in, So, but yeah, I would tell my younger self to educate myself as much as possible, but it's a bit of a catch-22 because there wasn't a lot of stuff around then, but we're not living then, we're living now. We've got less information out there. So as a young guy, I would learn as much as I can about myself. And you might use business as that vehicle to learn about yourself, or you might use spending time with women and understanding women as that vehicle, or you might use both. I'd recommend using both. if you're that way inclined. But some people aren't meant to start businesses. Some people are better off working for someone else, you know. So what I'd say to my younger self, which is I think is essentially what you're saying, is educate yourself as much as possible. In theory, get the experience as well, because the practical experience or the actual experiences you have in real life feed back into the theory and vice versa. So that's what I would say.
I would also say that educating yourself as a man in both business practices and dating practices is so important, also because there's such an overlap in the two.
Yes,
when it comes to qualifying, selling, closing the deal, negotiation, setting certain strong frames, okay, understanding your value, whether it's in, you know, it doesn't matter whether you're working for someone else, okay, or whether you're the business owner, okay, or you're getting into a relationship with a significant other, you need to understand your value as a person and be able to hold a specific frame and lead the interaction where you want it to go. And we're going to jump first into one of the posts that you've made. You've made a lot of really interesting posts on Facebook, and you've developed quite an audience, okay? And I want to talk about a few of them today.
Yeah.
Well, actually, first, before we get into that, you just talked about the massive amount of information that's out there. So what do you say to the guys who are just getting into the Facebook scene or the personal development world, and then they get overwhelmed with the amount of information? A lot of it is misleading. How can they navigate in those waters?
Yeah, that is a good question. And it is like you are jumping into waters now, and the waters seem to be getting more, I suppose for want of a better term, more shark-filled, and there's more, like you say, there's a lot of deceptive stuff out there, and there's a lot of really good stuff out there. So, like a lot of, I think one of the issues that men face in the modern day is being disconnected from who they are, their essence, or even disconnected from how they feel, like in their body. So that would be the number one step, is to get connected with that, and then to use your intuition, for want of a better term, to guide and lead you to the right people at the right term. And there'll be certain people in the sphere, or whatever you want to call it, these collective of men around the world sharing notes about their experiences of navigating life as a man, you know, primarily with women, which is like half the population. So that's a pretty important subject to nail, one of the most important ones, if you ask me. Yeah. So, and that feeds into the principles, like you say, feed into everything else. Like, so yeah, lost the train of thought there a bit, but I think
no, it's all right. It's all right. Well, we're going to continue with that thought. Because you made a post which started off by saying men have no incentive to lead, because when they do, it's a thankless and underappreciated pursuit with 100% responsibility and zero authority, usually with massive consequences, especially in a marriage context. Okay, so why is it that men have no incentive to lead, which I agree with you, but then they find themselves in these situations where they're lost and they're confused and they feel very hopeless?
Yes. Situations being like being married and family and all that goes with it. And
well, let's talk about some of those situations. They could be getting into a work relationship where their boss is taking advantage of them, or they're not happy. It could be a relationship. It could be a relationship where they're not setting a strong masculine or dominant frame, and women are, we're going to talk about this later, are using sex and holding it over their head. Okay. So there's a number of different examples.
Okay. So the question now is, what's the question now?
The question is
specifically.
No, the question is, why is it that men have no incentive to lead? And when they do, it's a underappreciated pursuit.
Because I think men, we're logical creatures. So we'll weigh up, or we should be weighing up, although we're conditioned, that's another story, but we're conditioned to be less logical and more emotional, which is another story in and of itself, but we're logical creatures. So we should be weighing up the cost benefit analysis. And then if you look at situation where you're involving a third party being the government and you're signing a contract and essentially now being governed by whatever that third party, which doesn't care about you as an individual. It's just there to, from what I can see, get its share of the pie, to control the situation, to make sure that resources are transferred from one party to another. Essentially, it's kind of really, when you break it down, it's not very pretty. So yeah, so that's there's no incentive there. So it's really all the, like I said, all the responsibility is laid upon the man, but his authority that he once had, I believe, back maybe before the sexual revolution. I don't understand all that stuff fully, looked into it a little bit, but say back in the idyllic times, say the 1950s, which everyone seems to uphold. Back in those times, he had authority, he had respect, he had his place, he had his role, was very well defined. Whereas now it's like society wants men to play by the old rule book, but now they've got this new rule book, which is written by women, because women now have the power in relationships, whether they be casual relationships or whether they're all the way to a marriage. But the major issue I see is the ignorance, or that you're deliberately kept ignorant or programmed in a certain way to ignore what you should really be considering, like in your financial position, how it's going to affect your long-term happiness, whether this is what you really want and this is what is really for you. And like for half the guys listening out here, it may be a really good thing for them, and maybe for the other half it isn't. But the other half of those guys, maybe 90% of those guys are 80, I don't know what the stats are now, will still go and do it anyway, you know? So you really it's really about learning to get to know yourself. And a vehicle to do that is learning to get to know women, because they're like our mirror. So, like there's someone put it, I'm not even on Twitter anymore, I just stayed off it, but I might get back on it because I'm starting a new venture. But someone put a post on about 30 before 30. So spend time with 30 women before you're 30 years old. And then study the theory, get onto some good information and knowledge out there. Stay away from maybe the guys that are, you know, because you could
Just
say it's all hating
Colin.
women.
Just say it.
You stay away from the guys that well, of course, you know, because it can come across as all women hate, because it's not. It's just educating men, especially young men or all men, of what they're really signing up for, not what they are told or led to believe, or because we're very idealistic men, and that's a really good thing about us. But also in the modern context, it's almost part of our obsolete biological wiring as well, because we always want things. A healthy masculine man wants things to be better for not only himself, but everyone around him. But what men do these days is they tend to put everyone else first. They've got to put themselves first, make sure they're healthy, make sure they're whole, make sure they're strong, make sure they're focused, and almost to the point of an obsession. And by default, all the people around you benefit from that. So it's like this amazing oxymoron, I suppose it is. Like, it seems really selfish as a man if you put yourself first in every decision and everything that you make, and weigh up, what's in this for me? How's this going to benefit my life? How's this going to benefit my long-term happiness? And a man that learns to live like that is a happy and content man. And that may mean having nothing to do with women, which is fine. I think as long as you're making that choice out of in a place of abundance, where you know that you can have the company of women or can enjoy the company of women. And it's just a skill that you learn. Like, it's like a guy who wants to be a mechanic and learn about a car. He goes along and finds a guy who knows more about cars than him. And then he spends 4 years with him. The first year he's cutting his knuckles and can't get it, and getting shit from all the guys, and is useless and not carrying his weight. And then the second year he starts to get better, third year, fourth year, then he becomes a tradesman. Learning about women is the exact same approach, but it requires you rewiring your whole brain. So I think we're getting a little bit off topic, but...
No. So you said that a man needs to be married to his mission and his long-term goals. And that's really what you're getting at with your last response, that when a man is truly on his mission, on his, for lack of a better word, purpose, okay, that there's going to be a much higher chance of the relationship succeeding, because he's not going to be putting his significant other on necessarily a pedestal. He's just going to be in a partnership with this person where they're going to be supporting and helping him on his mission,
Yeah.
on his purpose. And what was that like for you? So tell me about your mission and finding your purpose and how that affected your marriage.
Well, my purpose has changed, and it does as you get older drastically.
Mm-hmm.
So my purpose before was making enough money to, and it's a masculine purpose, I believe, and it's a very honourable and noble thing, to make more money than you require to support yourself, to make an abundance of money or a surplus so you can, so you can support a wife and children. So that was my previous purpose. I achieved that. I mean, there's always still room to grow in that, and I've got to keep my eye on the ball, because these things you've got to keep going, but it seems like it's all going to work out okay in the end. I'm going to go through the divorce machine, but just the way I've set things up, everyone's going to come out happy. So my purpose, to be honest, my purpose right now, I know what it is, but it's on hold, because I'm waiting till, I'm going through this divorce settlement right now, waiting hopefully by the end of the year it's all sorted, actually settled, and then I can rebuild my empire, is the way that I put it. And so my purpose, I know what it is, and I almost know what's involved, and I know there's going to be, well, my purpose is LAD, is life after divorce. That's what it's called. So it's helping. I haven't launched it yet, but I've been thinking about it and sitting on it for a long time. So it's called LAD, life after divorce. So it's going to be helping men transition essentially from being in a marriage identity and all that comes with that, to the massive shift that takes place to now being essentially zeroed out. So, and that's what happens to most men. They're discarded, because that's part of nature and biology. We're the disposable species, women are the protected species, and there's reasons for that as well, like theoretical reasons, which I think hold weight in reality, but we're essentially the discarded species. So we got to be prepared psychologically for that. And you can do that within a marriage context, especially if you know, like if a guy comes to me and says, first question I'd ask him, what do you want to do? Do you want out of this, or do you want to try and save it? Because I know tools I can give him to try and do both, you know? So, yeah.
Well, not to disillusion all guys out there, but what was that process when you decided, all right, this marriage isn't working out? I think that the best action is going to be to get divorced. And then you started to see how difficult it was. So can you walk me through that? Because I know my parents have been through a very difficult divorce, and that pushed me into a dark place. It led me to leave America, to really push them away as well, because it felt like then there was the taking sides and the money and the this and that. So just to give a little forewarning for men, what's that like when you get to that point that you realize, all right, we're going to have to go through a divorce?
Yeah, see what happened with me, and it happens with a lot of men, it's part of our psychology and biological makeup. We see things, women and men tend to, from my experience and my observations, see relationships very differently. Whereas a man will see it as, okay, I've invested into this woman, and he has, with his time, his energy, his finances, his very life, really, essentially, when it comes down to it. And she has as well, to a degree as well. So it goes both ways, or it should. And then he sees that in previous investment as of value, but in her mind, she's one of, how do you put it, more living in the moment. So she just sees how she's feeling. This is a very broad and generalized term, but we do have generalized behaviors. It's a fact of life.
That's so true.
Not all women are like this, and not all men are like this. I'm not saying this, but maybe perhaps 80% generally tend to think like that. So a woman more lives in the moment, and a woman wants security, and she wants excitement and or change at the same time. So what's asked of the modern guy is so much, one guy can't possibly provide it, you know, so because the expectations that women have now and the pressure that is on men, I just think is a bit unequal. So yeah, but like, you know, it is what it is. And one of the things I had to learn, or have accepted lately, is extreme ownership. Like, I made these decisions, whether they were made for me through my societal programming, my obsolete biological wiring, whatever, whether I was tricked into it or not. And that's where most guys get really angry and pissed off, and they project that anger out onto women or out onto the world. It's self-anger. So yeah, it's one of the hardest things I've probably ever had to do, because all that investment that you put into this relationship, you now know, or you come to a point when you realize, in her mind and in everyone else's mind and society in general, it means nothing. It essentially means nothing. All those hours, all that planning, all that effort, all that forethought, all that essentially doesn't have any value at all. So that's pretty confronting when you realize. And then you've got to learn to detach that value that society and other people have on you from you having that value or that viewpoint of yourself. Because that's why men end up committing suicide, you know, at 4 times the rate of women. And also either it's a quick suicide or it's a slow suicide. And whenever I hear of a man that's killed himself or a man that's struggling, it seems to be every time, and this is no way in blaming anyone, this is just a ignorance and a misunderstanding of how things, accepting how things really are. Just about every time it's connected into a breakdown of a relationship. And quite often that involves children as well. So when children come into the mix, that makes it really, really difficult, because you have this bond with the children, and you know, that is that's why I've delayed it so much, because I couldn't imagine living in a house apart from my children.
Yeah.
And the way the legal system is and the way the law is, as a man in the West, it's definitely in Australia, and I'd say it's the same in America, and I don't know about Israel, but as a man in the West, you're white, the woman owns the children. You do not. You don't
Why
own
is
them.
that?
You have responsibility. Just the way the legal system is biased. I mean, I can go into why. There's a Duluth model of feminism that was actually released in 1981 in Duluth, Minnesota, which it basically sees, and the legal system is trained to see all men as perpetrators and all women as victims. So that's the premise. When you went to the legal system, and I'm doing my best to stay out of it.
Yep.
When you enter the legal, but I've just read of other stories and know other men's experiences. When you enter the legal system, that's the premise that you're entering in under. So you basically like this. Look, it might not be this bad, but I know men have had experiences similar to this. It's not this bad for everyone. It's basically you're this guilty, bad man, and she's this innocent little woman, and you then have to kind of come from that.
That frame and that setting. Yeah, brainwashing.
Pretty much, yeah. So, yeah, just like mine wouldn't be don't get married. Like if you're a man, you can do what you want, and if you're a man, you can. Look, it's a great idea. Marriage and family with the right constraints around both parties, which used to come from society, which have now all been removed, particularly in the case of women. Men seem to have more constraints being put on them, and women seem to have less or none at all. That's really caused an imbalance in the whole dating market. And for a man going from divorce, and say he's been married 10 or 15, 20 years, he was pre-internet or pre-dating apps and pre-texting, and it's crazy out there, you know. So if you don't know what you're doing, then I can see how it would really depress and drive a lot of guys further down that pit of despair.
Now,
so I want to be here to guide them through that and to keep them away from that, or say, yeah, acknowledge that, feel that, accept that. And plus there's another part. You don't have to go and do this again. You can stay on your own. You don't have to be in a relationship, or you can be, but you need to get prepared. And these are certain parameters that you've got to consider. And, you know, can take in the legal, because the law is basically on the females or the woman's side now, completely. So this is how it is.
Can I ask you a tough question?
Yeah.
So you're saying that in the marriage context, it seems like it gives the power, at least at some point, to the woman, especially if...
all of it. It gives all of it to her. All of it.
Okay. Especially if a divorce is going to come in the equation. What about in business? Would you say that men have the upper hand in business? Because I know that women, they want more equality in the pay, you know, the amount of money that they make, and the job titles and the positions that they hold. So is there correlation there, or is it actually the, you know, different story for business is a different story for marriage?
Me and my understanding, it comes back once again to the psychology. So men live in a merit-based hierarchy. So whoever can, whatever means, whether they're ethical, unethical, whatever he does to make whatever his goal is happen, he has to do that through effort. So if a woman wants to compete with men, and that's the key word, then she needs to compete with men. But the general psychology of women is that more of a, everyone needs to be looked after, everyone needs to have their share, everyone needs to be taken care of. So it's kind of this, but a woman to succeed, I think, in the world of business or the world of men, the two are pretty much, they still are synonymous, and she needs to, I think, tap into that side of her that is less part of being feminine, I suppose, and more that masculine side. So there's a cost to that. There's a cost to that. So, yeah.
For a woman to succeed in business, it might be wise for her to tap into her masculine a little bit more, okay, be a little bit more assertive, more demanding at times, okay, and really understand her value that she's bringing to the table and present it and ask, okay? I see a lot of times the reason why women don't get the amount of money that they deserve is because they just don't ask for it. They don't demand the raise. Okay, they settle for whatever they're being given to them. Okay, and it's a little bit harder for them to speak up. It takes some courage. It takes some bravery. Whereas you're saying in the dating world, okay, that's where the men need to take their masculine and you take control of that. Okay, and so you've talked about how the feminine and the masculine energies are polar opposite, and without it, the relationships are going to struggle. And that growing up, boys are trained to be feminine and girls masculine. So as you said, it's on the back foot from the get-go in the majority of cases. Now,
seems that way.
Yeah, I really resonate with that because I didn't get the sense that being a strong, masculine leader in the world as I was growing up would be to my benefit. And I started to see that, well, I wasn't taught this stuff in school. Okay, I wasn't taught this stuff by my family or by my friends. So what ended up happening was I didn't have any qualities of standing firm, creating boundaries, leading, loving myself, okay, being purposeful, okay, or looking for that mission in my life. So how does a man, okay, how does the relationship, how does a man and a woman, how do they succeed in the marriage paradigm is my question.
I think, like, I've been listening to this one particular guy lately. It's actually called 𝘱𝗎𝗄. He's an Australian guy, and I listened to him and his perspective. And what was the train? There's a train of thought there. There's another. Probably like it's more critical, I suppose. But there's another saying that comes to mind. Like, what does a woman want? Right? Yeah. And a woman, she wants more. She wants more. So. But anyway, the thought came back to me. You got to find, I think, like for a man, I think love, a man's got to be careful with love. And I've kind of broken down what love is. And I'm sure there's more to it than this, but this is my current understanding. It's pretty much like it's pretty much like between a man and a woman. Like I think love is real, but love is real between a man and a child. And it can be between a man and a woman. But essentially to me, it's like, you become, you get certain biochemical dumps from being around each other and from meeting each other's needs. And some of those needs are real and they're genuine. But to me, this is what a relationship seem to me, even if they start out really well, you just seem to become dependent or like each other's drug dealers. So you're giving each other these dopamine hits, these oxytocin hits, through comfort, through companionship. So, yeah, I mean, I'm re-examining what I want in relationships as a man and what that means to me. So it's a topic that I'm exploring, but you really need to find someone that I think if you, and it depends whether you believe in monogamy or you believe in non-monogamy or whatever label you want to put on it. But typically the Western man wants to find that one woman, and typically this is the story that we tell each other anyway. Typically that woman wants to find that one special guy, so that seems to be the pattern that most people follow. For that to work, I think you've got to find someone that is like, it's good in the honeymoon period where you're like all those chemicals and all those things take place, and that's nature and biology kind of tricking us, getting us together, having as much sex as possible, and then hopefully a baby comes out of that. Find someone that you can be a friend, someone that complements your life, someone that makes your life better, someone that, and this has got to go both ways, someone that when you are together, whether you actually are together or apart, you're growing as a person, whatever that means to you. So that would be my advice, is to find someone. And what happens with a lot of guys, and to a degree it happened to myself, you sort of pick the first thing that you find physically attractive, not thing, first woman that comes along, or the first thing or relationship, whatever. I didn't mean a woman as a thing, but you find the first woman that comes along that says yes to you or you're attracted to, and because you're very idealistic, all that kind of gets mixed in instead of like using your logical brain. And then, because how it is when you first met, that's probably the best it's ever going to get. I mean, I know it sounds really nihilistic, but
it does.
But beyond that, that's currently how I see it. That may change. I might meet someone, I have an experience that changes that, but that's my current perspective. I'm no means an expert on long-term relationships, but I've had a few.
I know you made a post about how not everyone that you're talking to with this pros is going to connect, because some people are in healthy relationships. Some people really do love their husband and their wife, and they're growing with them. And you see the 80 or 90-year-old couple and you're like, God bless you, if I could have done that would have been awesome. But you and I both, have experienced it. I've experienced it through my parents. All right. And you've experienced it yourself. And then I've seen so many other people. I was in Japan. I met a guy. He said, the minute that I, had a baby with this Japanese girl, sex over. No more sex.
That's common there. Apparently that's common there. I listened to a guy who lives there, and he said that is a common thing. But go ahead. Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you feel like Colin is attacking you, maybe just turn off the interview and continue on with your day, because, Colin is trying to help a specific set of men who are falling into a trap. Okay. And it's sad to see. It's sad to see. Okay. And as you just called it, the monogamous model, or women's sexual strategy, which is the default for both sexes due to social programming. And is it the root of the issue? And these are your words, not mine. So I've started going into the possibility that maybe monogamy is not the only way. Like, it sounds cool on the surface, like this fairy tale. Oh my God, I'm going to meet the one and we're going to get married and we're going to have kids and we're going to live happily ever after. But it just doesn't seem to work like that for so many people. Divorces are on the way up, and happy marriages are on the way down. So is polyamory a solution?
I think it's what seems to be happening that I'm seeing is there's a natural order, because I'm all about, or not all about, but one of the things I'm strong on at the moment, or I have been in the recent past anyway, is learning what it is to live. What is my natural way of being as a man? Take away this clinical modern environment we live in, which I'm appreciated for it. I love being comfortable and I appreciate everything that modern technology has to offer. But I often imagine, okay, what would I need? What is my true nature as a man? And to learn to line up with that. And the more that I do that, the more content I seem to be, the more I seem to learn about myself and understand about the world and other people. So, and I find a major vehicle to that is spending time, not investing necessarily like in speaking like a business term, you like spread your investments. Like I see this, the relationships or dating market as the same thing, as to not put all your eggs into one basket and to have very clear boundaries of what regardless of what society says is right, regardless of what she thinks, you have certain very clear boundaries that you have in place. Like 3 of mine, I'll never marry you, I'll never live with you, and I'll never have children with you. So,
but you had to learn that. You had to learn that because you've gone through the marriage, the living with, you know.
Yeah, and I was seeing it. I just ended it. I just ended, or she ended, but I kind of like. Anyway, she ended the relationship.
What happened?
We just had for 2 years. She wanted me to move in with her, live with her. Basically, she wanted more.
Yeah.
And full control. That's the way I saw it as well. But she's not consciously thinking this, and no woman really is. Or some are, but I don't think most are. It's more of like a subconscious program that's just running. And it's all based on obsolete biological wiring that we no longer makes sense, logical sense in this day and age, but it still controls us. So it's learning just to learn what that is, and some of that is beneficial to you, some of that isn't. So even with the whole polyamory, I don't even call it polyamory, I just call it non-monogamous. So
non-monogamous.
I have because some of those terms I don't even understand. So like it's like, but I just know that my natural inclination, left to my own free will, which I now am, is to enjoy sexual relations with multiple women at the same time. Now I may get to the point where, and I very well believe this is a journey, where I don't even need or want that anymore.
Yep.
So it's like a self-actualization, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I'm essentially on a path to self-actualization, if there is such a thing, or some people call it enlightenment or whatever, which that may not even be real. But that's essentially the path that I'm on, and at the moment I'm enjoying it. But at the same time, I'm questioning it too. Like, why am I doing all this? Why can't just be living enough?
You just talked about enlightenment. Are you spiritual at all? Do you have any spiritual juices in you? Any higher power that you believe in?
Oh man, I used to be full-on born-again Christian, so that was part of my journey.
Wow.
That's where I left. That's where, and writing the Bible, and 100%, as much as I've been into learning about intersexual dynamics, I was passionate about learning about the Bible, about God, about, and that was part of the reason, because I met my ex-wife at church, and I had awareness. I have a very strong awareness, even before the internet age, before red pill, purple pill, blue pill, all these different pills. I had awareness of women because I had 3 sisters and a mum. And I thought if I found a nice, good church girl, then that would increase my odds of success. And we both believe the same thing. But at the same, I didn't believe it just for that, but I thought that was a potential benefit of being involved in religion. But see things happen. I did have encounters of a spiritual nature. I can't explain logically to this day. So there's definitely something out there. What it is, no one knows. No one really seems to definitely know. Only those people that have left and not come back. So I'm more of an agnostic, I suppose you would call it. But yeah, some people would describe me as spiritual. I'm definitely interested in stuff that seems real and powerful that you can't see. So, and a lot of that is a relationship between a man and woman. Essentially, it's the stuff that you can't see that matters. If that makes sense.
Well, maybe you won't be able to see it crystal clear as to why you've gotten to this point, but it seems like there's a reason why, and there's something driving you to get to this place where you want to get back. Yeah, where you want to give back, and you want to help other men, have healthy relationships with women and also with themselves, and not feel like they're under control, because you said control a man sexually and you control his entire life. But there is another way. There is another way.
Yeah.
And you also said that to the ladies, if you come at a man with masculine energy, expect it back. But if you come at him with feminine
Yeah.
energy, you're going to melt his heart. And the question is, do you know the
I think
difference?
so, yeah.
And
That's my experience.
I think that a lot of the time that we don't know the difference. We don't understand that. We don't understand that dominance can be a beautiful thing. We don't understand that honesty can hurt. We don't get that vulnerability and a man crying is not necessarily portrayed as weak in a woman's eyes. And so we have a lot of misconceptions as to what does it mean to be masculine? What does it mean to be feminine?
Yep.
And then when we get into the relationship, what ends up happening? There's a culture of shame. Okay. And I started to experience this a little bit in a relationship I had not so long ago, where I probably lost the frame at some point. And
as we do.
Yeah. And I started to get shamed because of it. And I was starting to think, wait, is it me? Is there a problem with me? Am I not enough? Did I not do something right? But this seems to happen over and over again. We live in this culture. As you said, it used to be guilt. Okay, Mitch Miller talked about this. Now it's shame. Okay, and you might have experienced this. Have you experienced this in your marriage where there was aspects of shame that was coming up?
Yeah, I would say that was in my particular case, and I believe my case is not the uncommon one, it's more the common one. That was one of the major tools or major weapons, if you want, that was used. Was shame. Absolutely. To make it almost felt to me, and look, I'm not like saying, looking at I want to honor my ex-wife. She's a wonderful mother and it's reasonably amicable. We'll get through this. We'll get it sorted out. In my experience, is probably going to be way better than most guys' experiences. So it's not like I'm like having a go at her. Sorry, repeat the question again, because I start waffling and then I get. I'll stick to the question.
You're doing great. I just asked you, what sort of shame did you experience in your marriage relationship?
So the shame, primarily, there's individual instances of it, but primarily the shame, the overall cloak of the shame, or the reason for the shame was to cloak your value as a man, right? And she's programmed to do this as well. And it's also, I think it's a mixture of societal programming and biological wiring. There's a combination of things going on, and a combination of reasons why she's doing it. It all ties back to her survival and the survival of her children. It's like we should be allowed to talk about women and not be, because that's what women will try and shame us to not talk about these things. Like, oh, you've been hurt, you're an incel. They'll use shaming language, not enter into a reasonable debate.
Colin, just to cut you off, there will be women, if they actually stumble upon this interview and listen to it, some of them who will be so frustrated listening to this interview, even though as men, we're at different stages in our life. I'm almost 30. How old are you?
Almost 50.
Almost 50.
I'm 50 in May.
And all we're trying to do is understand social dynamics at a higher level so that we can have healthy relationships with women. But
and ultimately who benefits ultimately and as well?
Exactly.
Women do as well.
And
that's our hearts, ladies. If you are listening, that is our burning heart's desire, to have healthy relationships, not only for ourselves, but for you as well, because that's who we are. We're amazing, wonderful, caring, compassionate, empathetic creatures who have just been stifled. We want to release all this love, or you want to call it. We want to share it with you. We do, but we can't walk into a landmine. And that's currently the environment in relationships between men and women that I see. And men just need to be aware what they're walking into, not to whinge and not to complain about it, just to be aware of it and then make a logical decision based on the facts and the reality, not what feels good or not what's driving you. Be aware of those things, but what you're entering into, and you are in a position where you do have to lead her, and there's a responsibility that you're taking on, and you've got to know how to do that. And the only way you know how to do that is, one, learning the theory, good sound theory off other guys who do it themselves, and then going and doing it yourself. Same as any skill that you learn in life. And it's going to be hard because you've got to rewire your brain. You've got to face all your limiting beliefs. It's the best, to me, it's the most wonderful self-development course a man can undertake, is in setting out to understand the opposite sex and to be good with them and to give them what they want and to get what you want. Like, that to me is the number one step a young man. Like, if I could spend my whole 20s again, I know this sounds probably crazy, but if I could spend my whole 20s again just learning about that subject, I would.
Well,
it's that important to me. But look, to not all guys, I'm not saying all guys, you need to take this journey. Some guys, it's not for them. I understand that, and it never will be. But for most guys, it is. It's a puzzle that we need to solve. And it's solvable. It really, really is. And once you solve it, you're like, oh, okay, no big deal. Meh, what's next? You know,
it's actually more accessible. It's more accessible than ever to be solved.
Oh, at the fingertips. Yeah, whatever you want to be solved nowadays, there's other men out there, because we're problem solvers, solving it, already paving the way for you. They're called mentors, you know? So I've got many mentors, and most of them are online mentors I've never met.
Yep.
So there's tons of guys out there that just are healthy, they're masculine, they're tapped into their essence. And part of being a healthy masculine man is you want to naturally give back.
Yeah.
And that becomes what your purpose is. So, yeah. I know what my purpose is.
That's
I know
well
what my
said.
purpose is. I know what I have to do. It's just on hold for the moment.
That's well said. That part of being a man is getting to the point where you understand that you have to give back, that you can give back, that you can serve others, that you can give and benefit society to the greater good.
But also realizing you don't have to do anything either. But if you don't do anything, it's probably going to end up pretty shitty for you. So, yeah.
Pretty lonely.
Yeah, your mental health, I think, as you get older too, man, I have some struggles within my mind, because the more onion layers you peel back, the more you see, and you're like, I don't really want to see this now, but it's too late. I can't go back. So, I mean, people call that the red pill or whatever you want to call it. But to me, it's just, it's seeing things for how they are.
Yeah.
And accepting them. And then, like, a lot of guys, if they did see how things where they are, I don't know if they'd cope. So it's not for everyone.
So I wasn't sure whether we were going to touch on this, but let's do it because you just brought it up. So there was one of your posts where you said, like, men are trained from a young age to be anti-seductive or bad with women. And that's why there's a high correlation for divorce rates and sexless marriages. So I learned, how to play tennis. Okay. The basic studies that I needed to in my high school. Okay. I was studying political science and human rights in university and business at times, but there was never this course curriculum on social dynamics, on, not just how to communicate in like a marketing perspective, even though there's overlap, but how to tie that into the relationships. And so I seeked that out and I wanted to learn. I was interested, but I've come to realize that this social dynamics dating world is very complex. And there are also some really nasty or really toxic, methodologies or teachings that end up just confusing men more than they actually help, helping them to find peace and clarity and purpose and a vision. So what do you think of the seduction and red pill community right now?
There's, like anything, there's some good in it, and there's what they call grifters. So there's a lot of people coming along seeing it as an opportunity to make money. That element is there. But once again, I don't want to say go listen to this person, because I did. Because you might listen to that person, it might be just a completely wrong thing or completely wrong angle that you need to hear, or that person's personality doesn't resonate with you. So I used to do that, but I shy away from that. So just get guided by your intuition, and realize that you go through, like, if you're going to go through this journey, you go through the 5 phases of anger. So what is it? It's that denial is the first one, then anger, then bargaining, then depression, then acceptance. Right. So I'm hovering between at the moment, I'm only 3 and a bit years into this journey, into like leaving the Matrix is one of the analogies they use, and that's probably the best one that makes most sense from the Matrix movie. So I've left that Matrix and I've disconnected myself from it. But then a lot of men do that, and then they've got all this freedom and this time on their hands, and that freedom and time can be a blessing or a curse. So I'm still learning how to walk that out, but it's almost like my life's on hold until this event that I'm going through, this divorce settlement, takes place. I almost feel like once that's done, right, a whole new world's going to open up for me. Even though I'm enjoying my life now, I'm growing, whatever. But that's the best parallel that I can think of, is like understanding that you're part of a system, and that system, for the most part, will not benefit you as an individual. It's going to probably make you miserable. And like, if a man is on his own, or has not a huge amount of responsibilities, his options are literally like that. When he then gets married or goes into that environment, which, like I say, for some guys it's great, it's exactly what they need to do. But for a lot of guys, a lot more guys that do it shouldn't do it. That's all I'm saying. But their options go like from that to that. You know? And some guys need that. And I think in a way it was good for me, really good for me. Like, I don't know if I would have made all that money if I didn't have that driver behind me. I don't know. I might have made more. I don't know. But, you know.
I do know. It probably was meant to be. You probably needed to get into that relationship to learn what you needed to learn to get to the point where you are today, where you can.
Well, you're right, because most people get given to this journey of whatever you want to call it, a red pill journey, a journey of truth, a journey of discovery, self-actualization, re-identifying yourself. Most people need to face a major crisis to wake up from their slumber. And I was, you know, I was like more like a purple pill guy. I was aware of what was going on, but then I still had all these ideals that I was so arrogant and ignorant that I thought my ideals, and a lot of it is arrogance and ignorance with guys. It's a combination of those two things, that their idealism can override all this other combating forces. And it's the idealism in men is a wonderful thing, but when it comes to now applying it to into relationships with the opposite sex, you really need to deal with it. That idealism will be undoing. So, but I think a lot of guys, especially younger guys, are getting woken up to what's really going on. Just, it's so blatant now. So, you know what I'm saying? It seems very, like, I don't know if it's just me, but it seems so blatant now what's going on. You know, this incredible imbalance might not be the right word, because it might be nature just rebalancing everything.
It's possible.
Working, like, I've looked at that as well, because back in the day, women would choose to be with the top tier men, which would increase the chances of their offspring surviving, growing up healthy, and continuation of the genetics in the species. So it almost seems like it's going back to that.
Yeah. But at the same time, I do see a lot of men who are really great. You know, they just don't even understand their value. They don't understand the quality they can bring. Yeah, they don't understand the quality they can really bring to the relationship. And they also don't understand, you know, our final point that we're going to talk about, which is dominance. Okay, which you said is often confused with domineering. And it's a highly misconstrued term. But in your words, you said it simply means benevolent leadership that another person willingly follows because it's good for them and in line with the natural order. What I've come to realize is that when you can lead with dominance and with empathy and with respect, you can create incredible relationships, incredible connections with other people. They really respect you, you respect them, and you're able to go really deep down the rabbit hole. So what does dominance mean to you?
Well, the issue I'm having now, because I'm seeing three girls regularly, and then a few others pop up every now and then. You know, they're like, women are like cats. Like, you can't, They come and go as they please. And men are like dogs. We're like more the loyal type of creatures. But in regards to dominance, I think I'm doing all right in that respect, because the issue I'm having now is that these girls, or more than one of them, or a few of them, are becoming almost obsessed. So to me, dominance is just that. But then they know that what they want or what they think they want, they can't get from me. But it almost seems like because I'm getting a greater understanding of dominance, both in theory and in practice, and using that. But like girls will say to me quite often, I hear the term, "I hate you." But what they're saying is, but I take that as a compliment. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, tick, I'm on the right track. I mean, this might sound like dark stuff and manipulation, but this is just stuff I've discovered and I can't deny it. And I do it even reflexively now, like, because I practice it that much. But like even though they can't get what they want from you, and then you've made it clear, you've spelt it out, like indirectly and directly, like, this is what I'm about. You know, I see other women, you do have to get to the point where you do it directly, but there's a way to do it, you know, but you do it mostly indirectly. I'm not the settling down type of guy. But it's then, if you can have that dominant frame, both primarily sexually with them, and that's not being a jerk either, you know.
Nope, not at all.
Women have it's because different women have different kinks and they have different ways that you want to be with them. And it's like it seems to me they don't want to tell you, but they get great joy in you figuring and working that out as a man, like what turns them on, what they like. And you just do a lot of things by trial and error, and there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of things that seem to universally work. But getting back to the topic of dominance, what is that? Yeah, it's that they choose to be around me because of the way that I make them feel. And the reason I can make them feel like that is because I have an overarching dominant persona. And it's like, now I don't, like, when they're around me now, I'm relieved when they leave, because it's like, it almost gets like I can see too clearly what's going on, and it gets annoying almost. So I'm hoping I'm on part of my journey where I'm even transcending the need for, which to me is the ultimate dominance. The ultimate dominance, this thought just came to me now, the ultimate dominance over yourself, which is ultimately what we're trying to achieve, is self-mastery. We can, that is like not even needing, like transcending earthly desires, I suppose. Not to sound woo-woo and super spiritual, but the woman seems to be the most powerful desire that a man that can drive a man. You know, so if we can overcome that, and hopefully that's the path I'm on. And that to me, that's the ultimate meaning of dominance, is having dominance and control over your own desires and yourself. You can choose that if you want to, but you don't need it anymore. So dominance with a woman, probably the same thing. She chooses to be with you, you choose to be with her. But this is new stuff just coming out of my mouth as I'm talking. But you don't need to be. That is dominance. Her willingly choosing to be with you because of who and what you are. More what you are than who you are. But
yeah, what you stand for.
And it's rare. It's rare as fuck for a man to definitely. Sorry for swearing if it's not. But for a man to.
I curse all the time, Colin.
For a man to be genuinely dominant, he needs to be benevolent and he needs to be empathetic, but he needs to also be, for want of a term, a douche or an arsehole from time to time. And he needs to only do what he wants to do, you know. And she'll push for more. What does a woman want? More. She wants more control of you and your masculinity, not because she's bad, not because she's evil. She wants to test you to see, is he the man I think he thinks he is? So if you can pass all those tests by staying dominant and in your masculinity, empathetic, benevolent, just a beautiful creature just to be around, and you've also got that dark side too, or that side that can just break out like that, and she knows it. It's incredibly intoxicating to a woman, and it's how I believe that's how you're meant to be as a man.
I think that...
So it's a win-win. It's a win-win for both people.
Yeah, I think that all men, they have that inside of them, but because they're trained to be feminine, and then they hold on to this nice guy frame, and then they take the victim mentality against what you're calling is kind of like a little bit douchey or asshole behavior, which you're not telling people to go and be necessarily like mean or degrading or abusive, especially not. You're not telling anyone to go be abusive, but to be a little, flirtatious and a little bit feisty, okay, and to hold your frame and to be dominant, and like it's that's what's missing. If you're the nice guy listening to this podcast, like that's what's missing. So hit Colin or I up after this and we'll dive deeper into it. Now, what's your plans moving forward? So you are doing this life after divorce. Are you already taking on students right now?
No, I'm not yet. I haven't set it up. I know what I need to do.
Okay.
I did the same. I know to market it and to get the word out there and to get a following. First of all, it's got to come from a place of authenticity. Because I set up my finance business, I learned all the marketing from scratch. I kind of know how to create an online. Like I know what to do. I'm just pretty much putting it on hold until I've got past this issue or hurdle or challenge in my life, which is this divorce settlement I'm going through. Hopefully that's all done by the end of the year. And once that's done, because I've got a feeling it might be just irrational self-confidence, but nothing wrong with that. I've got a feeling that once I do press go on it, it's going to explode.
Definitely.
Right? I just got this real strong feeling. It's because of the passion. And it's like you said before, I have been given a mission, like from the Blues Brothers, that movie. It's an old movie. They said they're on a mission from God. I do feel like it's that, even though I'm not sure whether God's real. So the mission that I have been given, I can't. The only way I can, because I try to think, why do I care? I actually want to let it go and let it die, but it won't die. And I now know why, because I know it's been given to me by an outside source, an unknown outside source. So it just has to be released, and that's part of the reason I'm holding back as well, because I've got to make sure whether you can ever get ready for something like this. But there seems to be very few people talking about it. But the principles I'm going to teach guys in that demographic, say are guys aged 40 to 55, married, kids, whatever, going through that. Should I stay in this marriage? Should I get out of it? The principles I'm going to teach them apply to a 14-year-old boy all the way through to a 90-year-old man. But
maybe this
how
will
marketing
be
work.
Course curriculum in schools or universities one day in
I can't
Australia.
see that happening. I can't see that happening. But when you think about it, it baffles you why it's not.
Why is it not? Yeah, exactly. Even if there weren't
that's another question. Why
isn't it? If there were
part of a conspiracy, is it?
Yeah,
is it
if there were
because
two perspectives that both men and women can go through just to rack their brains, just to start to understand, the dynamics behind it. But it's not. It's missing. So,
but I'm trying to find a way to explain it, if it's possible, where the mainstream can digest it. I don't know if that's possible. But I can actually say, hey, this guy's like, he's not like hating, he's just sharing. Whether men are going to be allowed to do that. Because it seems like we're not allowed to speak up.
Even this interview, I could just get that sense that it would be difficult for some mainstream listeners to not be kind of disillusioned or frustrated after listening to this, even after hearing some really harsh truths, whether you agree with them or not. But this is not the mainstream, and yet there is definitely an awakening, a rise of people that want to help men and women connect on a deeper level and want there to be healthier dynamics and don't want to see as many relationships end in, traumatic divorces, not only for the men and the woman, but also for the children, because that creates a lot of pain and trauma that they need to end up recovering from moving forward in their lives. So, Colin, it's been really interesting having you on. Thank you so much for your time. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Just through Facebook at the moment. Just my name, Colin Rice. Where else am I on? That's probably just it. But look, I might take a while to get back to people because I'm pretty much just living a pretty low-key existence at the moment, enjoying just doing whatever I want from day to day. It's almost like I'm living my second youth, but it's like it's coming to an end. There's only a few more months of it left, and then it's time to do adulting again. So you can reach out to me, but yeah, I'll try and get back to you. But
no promises.
Once I get the whole thing going, yeah, I don't want to obligate myself to anything. Once I get the whole thing going, which will be, look, I could just be sitting here one night and go, right, I'm going to start that Facebook group, and then you'll get a notification. But it might be a week, it might be a few months. It's going to happen soon. And once that's probably going to be the best way. But just through Facebook at the moment, send me a message. If you want to say hi, or just want to encourage me, because it can be, you can wonder like, what the fuck am I doing? And do I really need all this shit that might come along with this? Because I'm going to be really misunderstood. Do I need all that comes along with it? So that is one thing that does hold me back. But nothing ever good was achieved by supplicating to fear. So,
oh, trust me, getting into the personal development industry, especially on the dating front, brings a lot of shit, and it brings a lot of confusion, and it brings a lot of hate, which is sad because you're trying to preach, in a sense, love and connection. But
it's kind of weird because I've only listened to some of your podcasts. We've interacted a bit on Facebook.
Yeah.
But talking to you now, like, I don't know if it happens between women. I don't know. I'm not a woman, but you can meet another man and then you just resonate. This guy, we get it. We're seeing the same things, and that's beautiful. So definitely, there's a sense of that that's taken place in this podcast where, and it's encouraging as well, because you sometimes you think, am I the only one seeing all this?
No.
Like, am I like going mad? And then you got other guys going, nah, dude, I'm seeing the exact same shit. You're like, oh, okay. And that's why men in society today are kept fragmented and separate. Because when we get together, when good men get together, really good shit happens. Not just for them, usually for everyone else. So, where are all the good men gone? We're all out there. And like you said earlier, it's all covered up by limiting beliefs and lies and bullshit. And it's actually not that hard. It's a matter of removing that, and then who you and what you already are as a masculine man. It's in your DNA, already there, waiting for you to tap into it. And the way you do it is, okay, I've believed a load of shit, and really it hasn't worked for me, no matter how much my ego tells me it has. And things can be better. Put your ego aside and, humble yourself and learn off guys that sound like they know what they're talking about.
All right. Well, we're going to leave it at that. You guys know where to find Colin, and you know where to find me, David S. Goldstein on Facebook, 𝗍𝗃𝗍𝗏.com, if you're ready to unleash your true potential as a man. So thank you so much.
I just want to give you a plug, your podcast. Haven't listened to all of them. I'll listen to 3 or 4 of them and love it. Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Go listen to Dave's podcast. Heaps of value there.
If they're listening to it, they're here right now, and this was a great episode. All right, we'll talk soon.
Thanks, man.
Peace.
See you, bye.